Okay, well, hello everyone. This is Jennifer Seven with Seven Company Weight Loss and Wellness Center, and I am so excited tonight to have a guest joining me to talk about our topic of sleep. So I want to introduce Cheryl Mirabella. I have known Cheryl for many years, and we have gone on quite simultaneous journeys in our lives. But Cheryl has combined her background in counseling and psychology with her knowledge of nourishing whole foods. And she's a health coach. She helps her clients live a more balanced and energized life. And she actually started her own company, Living Whole Health, in 2003. She works with clients of all ages, and she actually has her master's degree in psychology and counseling from the University of Santa Monica. And she received her certification from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition in New York City as a health coach. She also completed the Food as Medicine training sponsored by the Center for Mind Body Medicine, where she also served as faculty. So I wanted to bring her on board because she is quite the expert in everything related to eating and food and health. And I thought I'd give her the opportunity to talk a little bit about her background, and then we'll jump into our topic of sleep and weight loss.
Thank you, Jennifer. I think you did a pretty good job of introducing. So yeah, I've been in private practice for, 18 years. It's hard to believe. So I work
Wow.
with individuals. Yeah, really holistic approach, as you mentioned. So looking at the whole person, because sleep is a huge part, right? How we eat, how we manage our stress, how we move our bodies. All of these, we call them the four legs of the stool in order to have a healthy lifestyle. So when people come to work with me, I'm looking at all those aspects. And actually, to be honest with you, sleep is the first thing I start with.
Is
Because
it?
it
Okay.
is, because if clients are not sleeping well, it's way harder to start thinking about buying healthy food, preparing healthy food, cleaning up healthy food,
Yeah.
getting outside and walking, and your stress levels are always much higher. All of your hormones are definitely out of balance when you don't sleep. So it's really the first place I start. So I love talking about this topic.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, particularly because we're in a global pandemic, that people are more stressed than ever. And when you're stressed, sleep often does not. We suffer with no sleep when we're stressed. Often we don't sleep. So let's just jump in and talk about what happens when you're not sleeping. What's going on with your body?
Yeah. Well, of course, everyone is different, right? So sometimes we are wired and tired, and sometimes we just have busy mind. Sometimes we're had too much caffeine late in the day. There's so many different reasons why we're not sleeping. Sometimes we have our faces in our technology right up until we try to shut it down. So there's many, many factors as to why we're not sleeping. So what I talk to my clients about is good sleep hygiene. And just in the same way, we have healthy sleep habits for our children when they're little and we have a routine, we have to also have a routine. So some of the things I'll tell my clients is that you want to stop eating at least 3 hours before bed, because you don't want to be too full and you don't want to be too hungry. So have your nice meal. If you are hungry at bedtime, maybe have a tiny little snack, but don't, that doesn't require a whole bowl of something, maybe a bite of something.
Yeah, and that's so interesting that you say that, because we always hear, like, don't eat after 8 p.m., but not realizing that it was actually better for your sleep not to be
Yeah.
eating so late. You think of it at a lot of other reasons why they say don't eat
Yeah.
after 8, because that will help you lose weight, but it's
There's
tied
a
back to your sleep.
That's right. There are a lot of good reasons not to eat late and go to bed on a full stomach, and like I said, also not go to bed on an empty stomach. Some other things is to start to wind down, right? So you want to wind down, start darkening the room, not have all the bright lights on, the overhead lights. And if you are on a computer, a tablet, or on a phone, you really want to start shutting that down at least an hour before bed, but 2 hours is even better. So just not have your face in the screen. Now, television, Netflix, not quite as bad. It's a further away. It's not right in your face. So most people can watch a little of that in a dimly lit room and be okay to go to bed. We don't
Is
want
it
to be.
is it is it the lights from the technology?
Yes, it's the blue light that
Okay.
interferes with our brain's production of melatonin. So
Okay.
melatonin you've probably heard of it. It's a very powerful hormone. Our body produces it. And that does help us to get into a deep, restorative, restful sleep. If we don't produce enough melatonin because of all that light coming in at the time that the body is, should be raising its melatonin levels as it gets dark outside, we should be raising our internal melatonin levels. But if what we're perceiving is daylight inside,
Hmm.
we're not,
Okay.
getting
That makes
right.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the other, also the reason why we want to keep our room completely dark. So no big bright uh, alarm clocks right next to your
Yeah.
bed,
Night lights and
night lights. And, if you're in a lighted area, like if you live in a city or you have a street light right outside, have room darkening shades. And if, say, you have a partner that wants a night light on, then maybe you want to wear a night mask. So when I travel, for example, I always have a night mask and earplugs because you just don't know the situation you might be going into, if the hotel or whatever it might be. So that's super important because, again, even though your eyelids are closed, the light can still come in through your eyelids
okay.
and not allow your brain to produce the amount of melatonin that you ideally want to get that deep restorative sleep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then there's some other things that are happening while we're getting those right hormones in place. So if we're not getting a good night's sleep, we're also dysregulating our hunger hormones,
Okay.
which is a big one. So have you ever noticed how when you don't have a good night's sleep, you're just, the next day you're not only low energy, but you're scrounging around for simple carbs and sugar and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other problem, I don't know if you've noticed this before, but even if you've had a meal, you're still kind of looking around for food. And that's because we have two hormones. One's called ghrelin and one's called leptin, and they help to regulate your appetite.
Okay. And
So
these are hormones in your stomach.
yeah, these are hormones in your brain.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And yeah, and so when we don't get enough sleep, the hormone ghrelin is not shut off. It's like a light switch that doesn't go off to say you're full. So the next day, when you are eating, you're still not getting the right signaling that I've had enough to eat. So
Yeah.
we look for the wrong food to pick up our energy, and then we overeat because we are not getting the right signals that we've had a meal. So there's actually, it's complicated, what
Yeah.
goes on inside the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's so interesting. How important it's really fascinating,
It,
honestly, because you don't really think about this stuff. You just
yeah.
think, oh, I'm cranky, I'm irritable because I didn't get a good night's sleep, so I just need to pick me up. Let me get my coffee, let me have a muffin, something like
Yeah.
that. But it's actually your body is signaling to you, that you didn't get that. So that hormone, that ghrelin, if you're not, so it's while you're sleeping that it's really doing its job, not ghrelin, but
Exactly.
it gets
Your
turned
body.
off if
Your
if you're sleeping. So much good stuff happens when we sleep, right? For our
Yeah, I think
bodies.
that's a good way to look at it, is that our body knows exactly what to do every minute of every day. And if we are following the right patterns, and going to sleep, getting enough sleep, going to sleep, even the right time. So we really want to be sleeping ideally between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Okay.
Because that's the body's favorite time to sleep. And a lot of things happen between 10 p.m. and midnight, such as our T cell production. I tap here because that's where our thymus gland is, and that's where we actually produce our T cells, which is our immune system. So there's a lot of things that are happening kind of behind the scenes, and our body knows what to do as long as we support it
Mm.
in, getting a good night's sleep. So I always say to my clients, but I needed to do my laundry or whatever it might be late at night. And I'm like, okay, go to bed a little earlier and just set your alarm for a little bit earlier. If you have to cut off the time it's better to cut off the morning, if that makes sense.
Okay.
You want those hours, those 2 hours before midnight. Those are really important hours for all of those hormones to get regulated, the T cell production. And then, of course, while you're sleeping, your digestion, your liver, your whole system is doing, everything it's supposed to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of repair work going on at night,
Repair
right?
work and
Yeah.
elimination and nutrient
Detoxifying.
absorption,
Yeah.
detoxifying, exactly. A lot of my clients who wake up at, say, 3 a.m., that's when the liver is working really hard. So sometimes in Chinese medicine, they'll say, wow, what's going on with your liver if you keep waking up at 3 a.m.? Because that might just mean that the liver is, overworking, or
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's a definite, but that's something that a Chinese practitioner might look at a little bit deeper and take a look at, like, what's going on that the liver might need some extra
Yeah,
support.
like if you drank a lot of wine before you
Yeah,
went to
exactly.
bed, maybe at 3 a.m. you're like, "Bing, I'm awake."
And
Don't want to
actually,
be.
that's a really good one. I was talking to a client about that just yesterday, I think, and she was sharing about how she has this new great Fitbit that measures everything, including her sleep. And she said, and I was telling her about where I used to have clients who would share with me that little glass of wine at night really helped them fall asleep. And they couldn't believe that it was really sleep disruptive when I would say, it's not really what you want to do for a good night's sleep. And they're like, oh, but I get knocked out. I feel great. And so I told her that sheepishly, one by one, once Fitbit started to hit the market, they'd come into their next session and say, oh, I hate it that you were right. Because the nights
I
that
was tracking.
the nights that I drank that wine, even though I fell asleep okay, that my cortisol levels would rise because of the sugar in the wine, and it would cause my sleep to be disrupted, and I would have a very fitful and not very restful sleep the rest of the night, which I wasn't even aware of was happening. So, yeah.
So,
Like,
so the science bore you out, or
yeah, it's
showed the
supported.
truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
so if you're going to have that glass of wine 3 hours before bed, then
Yeah. Have
yeah,
it
with
with
your
your
dinner.
dinner. Hmm.
Yeah, interesting.
Exactly. And then just kind of see, how you might be feeling, from day to day around that. But cortisol is definitely a powerful hormone as well that does both can interfere with our sleep and cause us not to sleep. So when we are our brain is activated with a stress response. So if I watch the news or fill in the blank, something triggers me, my amygdala, which is a very primitive part of my brain, interprets that as a stressful response. And so a messaging goes down my spine to my adrenal glands that sit on top of my kidneys, and they send out two very powerful hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. And the job at that point of my brain is to say, I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to give you these hormones so that you can run away from danger
It's like that
now.
fight or flight, right?
It's the fight or flight response. We also call it the activation of the sympathetic nervous system. And and so what happens is oftentimes if we're in that cycle day and night, we are, that can dysregulate our sleep as well. So if we're running too high with cortisol all day long, it may not calm down enough for us to get into a restful sleep. And so sometimes when I work with functional medicine doctors or naturopathic medicine doctors, they have a way to saliva test your adrenal function to
Yeah. Oh, because
see.
they're testing the cortisol levels,
Correct.
right?
And because what we want is in the morning, we want our cortisol levels to gently rise to get us going, to drop glucose into our blood so that we can be moving. We need glucose on our brain. And then, it rises throughout the day, and then it starts to fall as the evening comes. And that's what we want. But a lot of my clients will come in and you'll see the reverse happening. So they can barely get out of bed in the morning. They're struggling to get through the day. So they're turning to sugar and caffeine all day. And then by evening time, their cortisol levels are really high and they're having trouble falling asleep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. So when that's happening, how do they And is that mostly from stress? Like it starts with a pattern of stress,
Yeah. So
which
as
kind of
you
gets them all messed up.
as you were saying earlier, it's been a tough year.
It sure has.
And it even before this year, I would say the primary concern most of my clients came to me with was stress. And if we were looking to lose weight, we had to address the sleep and we had to address the stress. And stress over time just those adrenal glands take a beating. And as women especially get to midlife, um, those adrenal glands are kind of exhausted. And the other thing that takes adrenal glands down is caffeine and sugar.
Yeah,
So
because I've heard of adrenal fatigue, so that's what
that's
you're
right.
talking about. Yeah.
Talking about adrenal fatigue. And so when we are feeling adrenal fatigue, we're exhausted during the day. We are reaching for the wrong foods constantly. Our energy is really drained. And so and then at night we have trouble sleeping. So it's just this vicious cycle. And
Yeah.
it's a longer conversation about what to do about it, but in short, a whole foods healthy diet. And then there's some adaptogenic herbs that are really wonderful, which I usually have my clients get onto some adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha, rhodiola, which are very nourishing to those adrenal glands, and they can immediately help with sleep and then just get off the caffeine,
Yeah.
which I know a lot of people are like, what?
Yeah,
But there's
or at least, not afternoon, right? Oh, I think you were telling me that you are very sensitive to it, right? Did you tell me that last time we talked?
Probably did. Yeah. Well, actually, most people are. And different people that genetically, though, actually have slower metabolisms with caffeine. And on average, though, it's about 8 hours to get out of your system. So, yeah, think about that. Even that 3 o'clock coffee at Starbucks that you might turn to pick up that afternoon slump is going to affect potentially your evening slumber. And also, really can be harmful to your adrenal glands in the long run. So
Yeah.
there are some really nice coffee alternatives. I really love Rasa. It's called Rasa, Rasa.
Okay.
And check out their website. They have some really great products. And
Ross.
it's a small woman-owned company out of Boulder, Colorado. And they have actually incorporate the adaptogenic herbs right into the drink.
Mm.
So if you are, say, weaning from coffee, they actually have a coffee drink, but married to the coffee is the adaptogenic herb. So at least it's a balancing out, what the caffeine might just pick you up. The adaptogenics kind of help with that balancing. And then a lot of people just wean off the coffee. They have other alternatives. Like I like their cacao drink. And then they have one which is just plain, but it's just as an example. There's,
Gotcha.
there's I think another company called Ticino, which is also made with like chicory and dandelion root and things like that. So they
So
don't sound,
you
yeah.
feel like you're getting coffee, but it's not really coffee.
Yeah, I mean, in my French press is something dark and warm,
Yeah.
and that's all I need. And I actually feel great. I don't have that up and that down. And the other thing I noticed when I drank coffee was in the afternoon, that slump was more dramatic. And so I did feel like I was either going to look for food or look for something else to pick me up. So if I had that morning coffee, it hit me later in the afternoon. And so now I'm much more stable, much more stable energy all day long, right up until bedtime, and I sleep really good. So
Oh, that's good. So
yeah,
let's go back to that kind of setting yourself up for good sleep. So we talked
yes,
about lights and um, earplugs. I know that, if you have a partner who likes to watch TV in bed, that can sometimes be a little frustrating. So I like the idea of
yeah,
earplugs.
yeah. That's a
Um,
big, yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so what are some other things people can do to develop a good sleep routine?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say first try to negotiate that TV in the bedroom if you can, because that it would be ideal not to have a TV in the bedroom. But if that's not happening in your home, then for whoever it is, earplugs and eye mask. Number one, you want the bedroom to be cool in
Mm-hmm.
addition to dark. So as cool as you're comfortable, even in the winter, you want to even crack the window and get a little fresh, cool air in the bedroom. So
Yeah,
you
I
want to,
love a cool bedroom. I
yeah,
cannot, and I'm one that, it's people stick their legs out. I have a leg out from under the blanket all the time, just to
yeah.
keep myself cooler.
Yeah, so it's better to have the room cool, and if you need an extra blanket, so
Uh-huh.
keep the room cool. Um, we talked about the light, we talked about the quiet. So if you don't have little ones you're listening for at home, maybe some kind of noise, a white noise machine, the earplugs. So those are helpful. A lot of people have the busy mind, so I recommend perhaps listening to a guided meditation or a yoga nidra. There's so many wonderful apps now. So, like
Mm-hmm.
the Calm app, for example, has something called Sleep Stories.
Sleep stories. Yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't tried that one myself, but I have had clients who say they've never listened to the whole story. They're
It
asleep.
knocks them out.
They're not,
Yeah.
yeah, and but the thing is, like, how do we do this? Because we don't want the phone right on our body, next to our head. So if you can get like a Bluetooth speaker in your room, plug the phone in away from you, put it on
Okay.
the night sleep mode. So put on your sleep story or your guided meditation. Make it long enough so that you know that you don't have to get back up and that it's going to get you to sleep. So maybe at least 20 minutes, maybe more. And so those are really helpful for people who are ruminating and have busy mind and they're worrying about their day. And so something like that to kind of distract you from your thoughts. Now, having said that, a good practice also might be just to journal a little bit right before
Mm-hmm.
bed and just kind of do a little bit of a brain dump of maybe things that are on your mind, because you might find, wow, what was up there was, I got to change the oil in my car. Really? That's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's keeping me awake.
Right.
So just kind of like, I think now that most of us have good calendar systems, even if you need to do a quick, like, look at your calendar, and just do a quick, like, am I good with that? And then maybe just jot down anything you want to make sure you didn't put in your calendar that you don't want to forget. Because
Right.
sometimes it's just that, I just want to make sure I don't forget. Like maybe a
Yeah.
conversation you had with your partner over dinner and you talked about doing something, but you didn't write it down. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm crazy with my calendar. Like I always have my phone, and even if my husband and I discuss something, it goes right in the calendar, and then we share the
Okay.
calendar. So that just gives me that peace of mind that I'm not forgetting things, because there's a lot to remember.
Right.
Um, there's also some little hacks, such as essential oils are super
Mm-hmm.
sweet for people who like those. So to maybe get a diffuser in your bedroom with a little lavender is the most well known. A little lavender diffuser. You could also, if you don't have a diffuser, you can just put a few drops on a little tissue and put it, under your pillow, maybe on your pulse point or behind your neck right there. But make sure you like it before you do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Make
some
sure,
people say put it on the soles of your feet, right?
yeah,
Rub a little bit into your feet.
yes, yes, yes. There are a whole slew of herbal remedies that are also helpful with sleep. And I always recommend first start with like a very gentle synergistic like tea. So there's a lot of wonderful sleep formulas, and what they do is they work synergistically. So they put a little chamomile, they'll put a little lemon balm, a little poppy, and together they kind of amplify the positive effects. So again, don't have it right before bed, because you don't want to be getting up all night to use the
Right.
bathroom.
Right.
So
Right.
that
Yeah. That's
that
a big problem.
right. So that tea you might use right after dinner. And then that starts to just relax your body and set you up for a good night's sleep. That works really well. I know that there are formulas in a pill as well. There's a company called Deep Sleep, or a company called Herbs, etc. And their sleep formula is called Deep Sleep. And that is one that I had used during my menopausal years, and that worked great for me. So those are some things that work really well. Also, magnesium.
Okay.
So you can have a warm Epsom salt bath, and that way you're uptaking the magnesium right from the Epsom salt right into your body. If you don't have a bathtub, you could actually sit your feet right into a little plastic tub, with Epsom salts, and then it's coming, like you said before, the essential oil right up to your feet. So maybe a drop of the essential oil, lavender, and some Epsom salt, a cup of Epsom salt, and just have your seat, like maybe as you're watching Netflix and winding down from your day, just put your feet right into
Soak
that.
your feet. That
And
sounds
it's
so
really
nice.
nice. Or you could take a 400 to 600 milligram of magnesium supplement. Just there's many different kinds. Magnesium citrate is particularly good for sleep, but it also helps with move your bowels. So if you're already moving your bowels really well, you might have a problem with too
Yeah,
much
right.
magnesium. If you're not moving them as well as you'd like, it might be a double benefit to have a little extra magnesium in your life. Of course, eating a magnesium rich diet, lots of green leafy plants is the best way to get it. Nuts and seeds, whole grains, all are really high in magnesium.
And what about adding melatonin into, taking
Good.
melatonin at night?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So the thing about melatonin is our body naturally produces it. And so I'm not a big fan of having that be the first course of action, because I don't want my body to go, oh, all this melatonin's coming in through a pill. I don't need to produce it for Cheryl
Mm.
anymore.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
So now, having said that, it works really well for some people. And as we age, sometimes we reduce the amount of melatonin our body produces anyway. And so I always say go way small. Like, believe it or not, you can get 1/2 of a milligram or zero point 0.5 mcgs in a chewable form, which is really hard to find, but it's out there. And that's what I would start with. And you'll see 20 milligrams out there on the market. And that's just too much, in my opinion.
Okay.
So if
Okay.
you want to try it, start really small, but try everything else first. Try the good sleep habits, right? We're not
Hmm.
drinking our alcohol. We're not eating too late. Our room is dark. Our room is cool. We are getting off our technology. We're brain dumping. We are listening to some soft music or a guided meditation or yoga nidra, which is sleep yoga. And then if all of that doesn't work, or the tea, which is herbs, which our body doesn't produce, and
Hmm.
then maybe melatonin.
And then
So
I
that's
heard,
my philosophy.
yeah, I heard something too that you need to take melatonin at least an hour before you go to bed, or I don't know if you've heard that or not. I don't know
Yeah,
if
there's
that's
different. Sometimes it's advised just at bedtime, but it probably takes about 30 minutes to kick
to
in.
kick
So
in.
yeah, and
Okay.
then there are some time released ones as well. But again, I'm not saying not to try it. I'm just suggesting that if you try to go off of it, your body then may become a little dependent upon it
Ah, okay.
because it's lowered its own production.
Right, because it did. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about just plain old chamomile tea?
Yeah.
A sleepy tea.
Sleepy time. Yeah. So most of those sleepy time type teas all have either chamomile or a blend of chamomile and other things. So absolutely. Chamomile is beautiful. It's also a muscle relaxant. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Good.
chamomile is also, be careful if you have hay fever, because that can irritate people. So all of these plants, just try them small before
Hmm.
you start sneezing crazily, then you might have an
Right.
allergy to chamomile.
Right. So these have been some phenomenal tips. I mean, thank you, because it's really good stuff. I think setting yourself up for success with that good sleep routine, just like we just need these routines in our lives, that to help us uh, achieve some balance and take care of
Yeah,
ourselves.
and gosh, we all know how much better we feel when we've had that good night's sleep. So making that a priority, even, if you're starting on a weight loss plan or any kind of healthy plan, look at your sleep first, because it's going to eventually derail you from your success, because of the hormone issue and the hunger issue and the mood issue, right? If we are not
Mm-hmm.
sleeping, we're more sensitive, we are more likely to have more stress, and that whole cycle that we talked about earlier
Yeah,
with
might
this.
be a little more cranky, or just not
Emotional.
not clear-headed. Sometimes you just feel so fuzzy-headed when you don't get a
Yeah.
good night's sleep, foggy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
so I get it. It's hard, and a lot of people are struggling right now. And I know I've talked about a lot of things, but most of them are simple and free.
Hmm.
So, we can start with the simple things, and then if those aren't working, then, build up. But yeah, so
Well, I think that's fabulous. So the four pillars, sleep is the first that you address, and then the second is stress.
I would say food and actually food is second because I've been actually doing a lot of research into food and mood. And what we've learned is that a body that has higher levels of antioxidants in their blood has lower levels of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So if once we're sleeping well and we're then can go shop and prepare our healthy food, our energy picks up and our stress goes down.
Okay.
And then we have the energy to go out and go for a walk or go to the gym or whatever else we need to do. So I think that if we get the sleep, number one, food, number two, stress then starts to take care of itself with sleep and food. But of
Okay.
course, if that's not enough, then to start incorporating some stress reduction techniques like meditation, mindfulness, yoga,
Hmm.
tai chi. That's a whole nother little chat.
Right, right. And what's
um,
the fourth one,
and
Cheryl?
then the fourth one is movement,
Okay.
exercise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's
Which of
awesome.
course helps lower stress too, right?
Yeah,
So
it's like a circle, right?
yeah, it is. It is. It
The
is.
circle of life.
That's right. They all work together. And on a day where all of them are working well, um, that's great. And if you can actually get out for a walk in the morning, that actually helps with that 24-hour circadian clock that I talked about
Yeah.
earlier. So a little sun on your face, even for like 10 minutes early in the day, it just makes that evening sleep better.
Awesome. Yeah, good. So develop your morning routine as well as your evening routine. Last week we talked, I had a guest on, we talked about self-care, and part of that was just, getting up in the morning and kind of trying to get your little bit of quiet time or grounding time or that walk or whatever to set your day up for
Mm-hmm.
success. And then now
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about winding your day down for success. So
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, Cheryl, I thank you so much.
My
This has been a
pleasure.
great help. You're obviously an expert and very knowledgeable about
Oh,
so much.
thanks. Well, it's so good to be with you and see you. I know we go way back with our training and education, and it's so fun that we're still both training and educating and
I know it's a
passionate
a
about it.
life journey, right?
It is. It is. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, thanks for being on our Facebook Live, and thank you to everyone who showed up and share any comments, or if you have any questions, let us know, and we'll be sure to get you the answers. So have a wonderful night.
All
Take
right.
care,
You too.
everybody.
Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye.
Bye.